Hi, my name is John Wenzel. I stand before you today to speak about a very serious topic that could help to reduce crime in Rhode Island. I realize that the issue of death penalty is an extremely volatile one that pits people against each other. Views from both sides are very strong, and you need to be very open-minded to try to listen to each side. I'd like to speak to you tonight about the positive effects of the death penalty. I want to examine the views of the death penalty opponents, so I can try to refute what they have to say and have some constructive dialogue about the issues. There are three main views that death penalty opponents have that I'd like to talk about. One, the main view for me is that the death penalty deters violent crime in the future. The second would be that the death penalty does not put innocent people to death. And thirdly, that the death penalty process itself is not cruel and unusual punishment for the convicted. Of course, it wouldn't be fair of me to come before you tonight without voicing my opinion on how I felt about the death penalty. I'd like to state up front I'm convinced that capital punishment is a necessary tool to be used to curb future murders. I would also like to make it clear that I do not feel that the federal government has the right to tell a state that they need to have or not to have the death penalty. That is the right of the state. I believe in small government. I believe that the states can take care of themselves in most cases, and you don't want to have a precedent set by having the federal government step in and tell you that you need to have or not to have capital punishment. As a resident of Rhode Island, I just want to give my views to you tonight so you have something to think about and possibly talk to the representatives and try to get the question of the death penalty on the ballot for the next election. Then and only then will the voice of Rhode Islanders be heard and the final decision will be made. So please keep an open mind as I go over the topics and the questions that are going to be coming up. So let's get started. The first argument that the anti-death penalty contingent has is that the death penalty does not deter future crimes. This is probably the biggest argument that you hear about from the opponents. My response to this argument, it is untrue. According to David Mulhausen of the Heritage Foundation, federal, state, and local governments need to recognize that the death penalty saves lives. Research has shown that states that have the death penalty have shown having 18 less murders per year from previous years when they did not have the death penalty. That is a fact. That is what is going to be coming up over and over again. You can hear from the opponents. They want to push to say that it doesn't deter. The numbers don't match up what they think. Without the threat of the ultimate price to pay, obviously a murderer doesn't have to think twice. If he wants to murder somebody, he murders someone. If he knows that the penalty for him killing someone is dying himself, then they definitely think twice before they do it. This data shows that the death penalty does have an impact on future murders. The second argument is that the death penalty opponents cite is that innocent people could be arraigned, convicted, and executed. My response to this argument is also that I do not fully agree with it. This isn't 100 years ago. Years ago, DNA testing was in its infancy, and prior to DNA testing, there could have been incidents where innocent people did get put to death. With the technology today, and with the hypersensitivity to convicting incorrectly a person, people won't bring these cases before the courts. They will not ask for the death penalty unless they're 100% sure. In addition to the DNA testing and that hypersensitivity to not put an innocent person on death row, there are more and more appeals and a better process to go through to make sure that someone's not put to death unless appeals have been done. The third argument of the anti-death penalty groups is that the death penalty is cruel and unusual punishment. Again, to be honest, I don't have much sympathy. I don't want it to be cruel and unusual punishment, but at the same time, what they did was equally as bad. The methods that the United States uses for execution are lethal injection, electrocution, firing squad, hanging, and gassing. All of these have been researched. All of these are acceptable in the states. Certain states may have only certain ways to do it, but those are the 5 that the United States uses. All of these methods were chosen because they are, according to listserv, efficient in killing the condemned before he or she can feel it. Very important. If you want to not be cruel and unusual in the punishment towards these murderers, then you want to ensure that the way that they are murdered themselves, or the way they are killed themselves, is in a way where no pain will be felt. Death happens before they can feel it. Lethal injection is the most reliable method that they use today, and it's painless, and it looks like someone just falls asleep. That's about the extent of it. I could see how in the past it would be cruel and unusual if certain techniques didn't work well, and it was because it wasn't fully experimented with and done correctly. Nowadays it is. So in conclusion, my goal tonight was to get you out of your comfort zone a little bit, refute some of the views of the anti-death penalty opponents, and give you some information to think about. I just want you to think, maybe get away from your views that you might have already had preconceived. Think about it in a way that, I just learned something new, how can I bring that forward and put it into my own views? And hopefully I can get some of you to change your views a little bit, come to my side a little bit. It's up to you to really look into how you want this question to be answered. Ultimately, we're a free society. We should make our own decisions. So I'm just trying to give you as much information as possible. I do believe the death penalty is the ultimate